unprepared. So my goal with this video, and his goal, because I'll let him talk, I do enough talking, but our goal is to really...
We're live. We have
the next 100 days or even better, where we cool down or something in between, or we get another hot 100-day streak in a year or two from now. All you can do is prepare. You can't control the market, but you can be prepared. And there's many different ways to prepare. I hope that you're watching the new boot camp. Leave a comment below if you started watching our boot camp. Let me know what you think, whether you're in day 1, day 2, day 7. And understand, I'm getting a lot of questions about this boot camp. I'll post this just below this video. There's just going to be one link so that you have no excuse. We have priced this literally like 1/20th of what it should be priced at. A lot of people are recognizing that. But you don't have to do it in 30 days. Some people
welcome to DAVESPLAY.
I have a full-time job. I'm in school. I can't commit 30 days. That's fine. This is just
quick recap of the market.
Basically one lesson per day.
S&P 500
diehard students who
closed up 1.36% at a new, brand new record, all-time high, 35.85.
They're putting in 10 hours a day.
S&P 500. Welcome, Kay. Hello. Well,
who you are and how you want to take it.
Kenneth and Kay in the building. Please like the live.
When Matt and I started making this, he was right around.
Seems like President-elect Biden's going to inherit a all-time high market. I remember when President Obama inherited a financial recession. That's not even a recession. That was a depression. 2009.
All these tweets. Keep tweeting at me what you think. Courtney has been loving it. She says worth every.
So the Dow closed up 1.37% today at 29,480.
Here is Phil.
The Nasdaq closed up 1% at 11,829.
Worth 20, 30, maybe 40 or 50 times the price. And it is
in the after hours. We have VJet. VJet is up 39%. At 1274.
But I wanted to give you guys
also in the AH we have MLD. They're up 29% at 180.
Here's Igor. He just finished it, and he
said, he said MGI had a great ER for Monday.
Middle of their journey is packed with super useful information. Now go.
Let me write that down.
That's another thing. It's yours to keep. It's not like you watch it once and then like it, it's Mission Impossible and then it like disintegrates. Like you get to keep this.
MGI.
You can watch it 2, 3, 10 times. I know that some people don't want.
My pen stopped writing.
I think that it's good. Here's Krista on 6 days. She says she's loving it. So much information, and the workbook exercises and the quizzes are fun and funny. And yeah, we tried a little something different with this course. It's not just me and Matt talking. There's also
DAVESPLAY NAVB broke down today.
Revenge Trader also said
stock closed up 23% at 276.
And I could go on and on all day about all the tweets. I love them. I'm sorry if I didn't mention
the high of the day was 315.
I will let him
the low 239. NAVB.
What he's done right the past few
days bonus play CBAT did much better.
What he was doing.
They closed up 55% at 615. CBAT opened at 528, ran as high as 702, and the low on the day 517 CBAT. The volume today was 92 million, compared that to their average of 8.9 million CBAT.
I'm going to post the link just below this video, so there's one link. But also, do me a favor and just thank Matt. Say thank you.
Okay, you said LCA is moving, and what?
Not only has he made
what's the news?
Over $250,000.
What's the catalyst?
I think he has to update this too, because I think he made 20,000 last week, 20,000 the week before. So I think he's actually closer to 300,000. But just thank him, because I'm so grateful for students who make a lot and then also are willing to give back to the community.
No catalyst.
I'm grateful for all the students, and I'm grateful for all the help.
Maybe news is coming out Monday.
boot camp is so organized, it's because of Matt. It ain't because
LCA.
of me.
I'm writing it down.
More successful students.
I'll check that over the weekend
and help explain the strategy, and it's fantastic. I think Matt going over the basics and the rules, teaching other people.
What else is going on?
He stays disciplined, and that helps him. And then you guys all benefit from learning from
I'm feeling tired.
And if he keeps up, he'll be a 7-figure student too. That's how this works. I'm in year 12 now of teaching, so we see what works and what doesn't. And a lot of people are asking about this boot camp, like, why couldn't I come out with this earlier? Frankly, I didn't have that, and I didn't have a lot of the other helpers that I have now. Like, we've been building our team. In the beginning, it was just me teaching. And
this is Tim Sykes.
Yes, they thought I was lucky. Now, as more and more students are having this same kind of, profit chart, people are beginning to see, wait a minute, there might actually be something here. Sykes might actually not be as crazy or as fraudulent or as lucky as I thought. And again, I don't mind the haters. I don't mind the doubters. I get that most penny stocks are scams. I get that most people who teach on the internet are scams. And that's, I think, what I'm most
You ready for Merger Mondays?
No other product that I've had,
77 dimes in the building.
Everything together.
ACB and Tilray.
Nice box like this.
I think ACB did a
nothing, before he joined my challenge.
A dilution or something.
It helps show off my whole teaching style of how, it's not just about creating students.
You got to be careful with these pennies. They run them up, and then after a while they
relying on me. I know a lot of people
they do a dilution.
And their students aren't even students; they're just subscribers or customers. My students, I don't think
that's how they raise cash.
Or subscribers, okay?
That's why I say take your profits
studies
while you can.
And some people are like, "Oh, Tim, I can't believe how rude you are to a customer, to a paying customer." And I'm like, I'm rude because I want you to.
Okay, I said FSR.
It's in my own best interest to create the most successful students possible. That's how my business is.
Who do you hate?
That's what I am so dedicated.
Who do you hate? You hate FSR or Tim Sykes?
Crazy hours. And I donate all of my trading profits to charity. Right? I'm not in this for money. I'm in this to change the world so that people.
Oh yeah, Tim Sykes is.
There are consistent and reliable and replicable patterns in penny stocks. And I'm not that smart. I'm not that good at math. I'm not lucky. I'm not a fraud. I'm just experienced. I have 20 years of experience in this niche. And I'm willing to share every single thing because there are so many newbies, so many unprepared traders, so many lazy traders who just want hot picks. And you can profit off of them by learning the patterns because the lazy traders keep doing the same things. And so if they're doing the same things and they're losing money doing that, and you study
Cyclize.
doing wrong, and you do the opposite, then you can consistently make money. That's the whole thing here. Okay?
All right, Tim Sykes, that's it for you.
Out of scratch.
Yeah, Tim is kind of sketchy, but I learned some things from him. The art of money getting.
The art of money getting, or golden rules for making money by P.T. Barnum. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain.
Okay, I heard about that.
Please visit LibriVox.org.
He pumps up a stock and then short it. You got to be careful of these fools, so-called gurus,
It is not at all
fools.
difficult for persons in good health to make money. In this comparatively new
Always
field,
go with your
there are
own
so many
instinct.
avenues of success open, so many vocations which are not crowded, that any person of either sex who is willing, at least for the time being, to engage in any respectable occupation that offers, may find lucrative employment. Those who really desire to attain an independence have only to set their minds upon it and adopt the proper means, as they do in
So
regard
this
to any
ebook
other
is the art of
object to
the art
accomplish,
of
and
money
really is
getting.
easily done. But however easy it may be found to make money, I have no doubt many of my hearers will agree it is the most difficult thing in the world to keep it.
By P.T.
The road to
Barnum.
wealth is, as Dr. Franklin truly says, as plain as the road to the mill. It consists
P.T.
in
Barnum.
spending less than we earn. That seems to be a very simple problem. Mr. Micawber, one of those happy creations of the genial Dickens, puts the case in a strong light when he says that to have annual income of £20 per annum and spend £20.06 is to be the most miserable of men, whereas to have an income of only £20 and spend but £19.06 is to be the happiest of mortals. Many of my readers may say, "We understand this. This is economy, and we know economy is wealth. We know we can't eat our cake and keep it also." Yet I beg to say that perhaps more cases of failure arise from mistakes on this point than almost any other. The fact is, many people think they understand economy when they really do not. True economy is misapprehended, and people go through life without properly comprehending what that principle is. One says, "I have an income of so much, and here is my neighbor who has the same. Yet every year he gets something ahead and I fall short. Why is it? I know all about economy." He thinks he does, but he does not. There are men who think that economy consists in saving cheese pairings and candle ends, in cutting off 2 pence from the laundress bill, and doing all sorts of little mean, dirty things. Economy is not meanness. The misfortune is also that this class of persons let their economy apply
Never
in
pay these
direction.
guys.
They fancy they are so wonderfully economical in saving a halfpenny.
Tons of YouTube videos for free.
That they think they can afford to squander in other directions. A few years ago, before kerosene oil was discovered, very good supper. But after supper, he might attempt to read in the sitting room and would find it impossible with the inefficient light of one candle.
Sketchy.
The hostess, seeing his dilemma, would say, "It is rather difficult to read
buy this course, buy that course."
The proverb says you must have a ship at sea in order to be able to burn 2 candles at once. We never have an extra except on extra occasions. These extra occasions occur perhaps twice a year. In this way, the good woman saves $5, $6, or $10 at a time. But the information which might be derived from having the extra light would, of course, far outweigh a ton of candles.
NIO. I saw NIO up about
feeling that
$51 this morning. NIO. I sold out. I made about 40%, and I'm out.
$20 or $30 for ribbons.
That was a quick 40%. Took me about a week.
Not necessary. This false connote may frequently be seen in men of business.
It's due for a pullback.
In those instances, it often runs to writing paper.
Let me take a look at
you
it
find
real quick.
Good businessmen who save all the old envelopes and scraps and would not tear a new sheet of paper if they could avoid it for the world. This is all very well. They may in this way save $5 or $10 a year, but being
everyone
so
left from Tesla and went into NIO.
They think they can afford to waste time, to have expensive parties and to drive their carriages. This is an illustration of Dr. Franklin's saving at the spigot and wasting at the bunghole, penny wise and pound foolish. Punch, in speaking of this one idea class of people, says they are like the man who bought a penny herring for his family's dinner and then hired a coach and four to take it home. I never knew a man to succeed by practicing this kind of economy.
Okay.
True economy consists in always making the income exceed the outgo. Wear the old clothes a little longer if necessary. Dispense with the new pair of
Look at
gloves.
this beautiful chart
the old
for
dress.
NIO.
Live on plainer food
I
if
don't know
need
if you
be.
could see it.
So that under all circumstances, some unforeseen accident occurs, there will
Not
be a
showing
margin in
clearly.
favor of the income.
It went up to
Here and a
$54.
dollar there,
Wow.
placed at interest, goes on accumulating.
Well, it's at
And in
$47
this way,
now,
the
down
desired result is
7%
attained.
or so.
It requires some training, perhaps, to
25, you
accomplish
think
this
it'll go
economy.
that low?
But when once used to it,
25
you will
bucks?
find there is more satisfaction in rational
I doubt if it's
saving
going to go
than
back
in
to
irrational
25.
spending. Here is a recipe which I recommend. I have found it to work an excellent
That would be a
cure
Christmas
for
gift.
extravagance, and especially for mistaken economy. When you find that you have no surplus at the end of the year, and yet have a good income, I advise you to take a few sheets of paper and form them into a book, and mark down every item of expenditure. Post it every day or week in 2 columns, one headed necessaries or even comfort, and the other headed 10 times greater than the former. The real comforts of life cost but a small portion of what most of us can earn. Dr. Franklin says, quote, "It is the eyes of others and not our own eyes which ruin us. If all the world were blind except myself, I should not care for fine clothes or furniture." End quote. It is the fear of what Mrs. Grundy may say that keeps the noses of many worthy families to the grindstone. In America, many persons like to repeat, "We are all free and equal," but it is a great mistake in more senses than one. That we are born free and equal is a glorious truth in one sense. Yet we are not all born equally rich.
EDRY is down 25% today.
There is a man who has an income
That's
of
why I said in and out, in and out.
per annum, while I have but $1,000.
Do not
I
hold
knew
these
that fellow
pennies.
when he was poor like myself. Now he is rich and thinks he is better than I am. I will show him that I am as good as he is. I will go and buy a horse and buggy. No, I cannot do that. But I will go and hire one and ride this afternoon on the same road that he does, and thus prove to him that I am as good as he is. My friend, you need not take that trouble. You can easily be as good as he is. You have only
beat
to
on
behave
revenue,
as
but
well
didn't
as he
measure up
does.
to
But you
expectation.
cannot
Plunged
make anybody
28%.
believe that you are as rich as he is. Besides, if you put on these airs and waste your time and spend your money, your poor wife will be obliged to waste your time and spend your money. Your poor wife will be obliged to scrub her fingers off at home at a time and everything else in proportion, in order that you may keep up appearances and, after all, deceive nobody. On the other hand, Mrs. Smith may say that her next-door neighbor married Johnson for his money, and everybody says so. She has a nice $1,000 camel's hair shawl, and she will make Smith get her an imitation one, and she will sit in a pew right next to her neighbor in church in order to prove that she is her equal. My good woman, you will not get ahead in the world if your vanity and envy thus take the lead. In this country, where we believe the majority ought to rule, ignore that principle in regard to fashion, and let a handful of people calling themselves aristocracy run up a false standard of perfection, and in endeavoring to rise to that standard, we constantly keep ourselves poor, all the time digging away for the sake of outside appearances. How much wiser to be law unto ourselves and say we will regulate our outgo by our income and lay up something for a rainy day. People ought to be as sensible on the subject of money getting as on any other subject. Like causes produces like effects. You cannot accumulate a fortune by taking the road that leads to poverty. It needs no prophet to tell us that those who live fully up to their means without any sort of a reverse in this life, can never attain a pecuniary independence. Men and women accustomed to gratify every whim and caprice will find it hard at first to cut down their various unnecessary expenses, and will feel it a great self-denial to live in a smaller house than they have been accustomed to, with less expensive furniture, less company, less costly clothing, fewer servants, a less number of balls, parties, theatre-goings, carriage ridings, pleasure excursions, cigar smokings, liquor drinkings, and other extravagances. But after all, if they will try the plan of laying by a nest egg, or in other words, a small sum of money at interest or judiciously invested in land,
might
they
be
will be
LT price
surprised at the
target
pleasure
20,
to be derived from
2
constantly
upgrades to
adding
buy
to their
in the
little
last 2
pile,
days. Okay,
as
that's
well
good.
as from all the economical habits which are engendered by this course. The old suit of clothes and the old bonnet and dress will, after the season. The croton or spring water taste better than champagne. A cold bath and a brisk walk will prove more exhilarating than a ride in the finest coach. A social chat, an evening reading in the family circle, or an hour's play of hunt the slipper and blind man's buff will be far more pleasant than a $50 or $500 party, when the reflection on the difference in cost is indulged in by those who begin to know the pleasures of saving. Thousands of men are kept poor, and tens of thousands are made so after they have acquired quite sufficient to support them well through life, in consequence of laying their plans of living on too broad a platform. Some families expend $20,000 per annum, and some much more, and would scarcely know how to live on less, while others secure more solid enjoyment, frequently on a 20th part of that amount. Prosperity is a more severe ordeal than adversity, especially sudden prosperity. Easy come, easy go is an old and true proverb. A spirit of pride and vanity, when permitted to have full sway, is the undying cankerworm which gnaws the very vitals of a man's worldly possessions, let them be small or great, hundreds or millions. Many persons, as they begin to prosper, immediately expand their ideas and commence expending for luxuries, until in a short time their expenses swallow up their income, and they become ruined in their ridiculous attempts to keep up appearances and make a sensation. I know a gentleman of fortune who says that when he first began to prosper, his wife would have a new and elegant sofa. That sofa, he says, cost me $30,000. When the sofa reached the house, it was found necessary to get chairs to match. Then sideboards, carpets, and tables to correspond with them, and so on through the entire stock of furniture. When at last it was found that the house itself was quite too small and old-fashioned for the furniture, and a new one was built to correspond with the new purchases. Thus, added my friend, summing up an outlay of $30,000 caused by that single sofa, and saddling on me in the shape of servants, equipage, and the necessary expenses attendant upon keeping up a fine establishment, a yearly outlay of $11,000, and a tight pinch at that. Whereas 10 years ago, we lived with much more real comfort, because with much less care, on as many hundreds. The truth is, he continued, that sofa would have brought me to inevitable bankruptcy had not the most unexampled title to prosperity kept me above it, and had I not checked the natural desire to cut a dash. The foundation of success in life is good health. That is the substratum fortune. It is also the basis of happiness. A person cannot accumulate a fortune very well when he is sick. He has no ambition, no incentive, no force. Of course, there are those who have bad health and cannot help it. You cannot expect that such persons can accumulate wealth, but there are a great many in poor health who need not be so. If then sound health is the foundation of success and happiness in life, how important it is that we should study the laws of health, which is but another expression for the laws of nature. The nearer we keep to the laws of nature, the nearer we are to good health. And yet how many persons there are who pay no attention to natural laws, but absolutely transgress them, even against their own natural inclination. We ought to know that the sin of ignorance is never winked at in regard to the violation of nature's laws. Their infraction always brings the penalty. A child may thrust its finger into the flames without knowing it will burn, and so suffers. Repentance even will not stop the smart. Many of our ancestors knew very little about the principle of ventilation. They did not know much about oxygen, whatever other gin they might have been acquainted with, and consequently they built their houses with little 7 by 9 feet bedrooms, and these good old pious Puritans would lock themselves up in one of these cells, say their prayers, and go to bed. In the morning they would devoutly return thanks for the preservation of their lives during the night, and nobody had better reason to be thankful. Probably some big crack in the window or in the door let in a little fresh air and thus saved them. Many persons knowingly violate the laws of nature against their better impulses for the sake of fashion. For instance, there is one thing that nothing living except a vile worm ever naturally loved, and that is tobacco. Yet how many persons there are who deliberately train an unnatural appetite and overcome this implanted aversion for tobacco to such a degree that they get to love it. They have got hold of a poisonous, filthy weed, or rather that takes a firm hold of them. Here are married men who
is that the drone company?
Tobacco juice on the carpet.
Yeah, that's a dangerous
and
run.
Sometimes even upon their wives besides. They do not kick their wives out of doors like drunken men, but their wives, I have no doubt, often wish they were outside of the house. Another perilous feature is that this artificial appetite, like jealousy, grows by what it feeds on. When you love that which is unnatural, a stronger appetite is created for the hurtful thing than the natural desire for what is harmless. There is an old proverb which says that habit is second nature, but an artificial habit is stronger than nature. Take, for instance, an old tobacco chewer. His love for the quid is stronger than his love for any particular kind of food. He can give up roast beef easier than give up the weed. Young boys and wake up men. And to accomplish this, they copy the bad habits of their seniors. Little Tommy and Johnny see their fathers or uncles smoke a pipe.
Yeah, I remember that one.
If I could only do that, I would be a man too. Uncle John has gone out and left his pipe of tobacco. Let us try it. They take a match and light it and then puff away. We will learn to smoke. Do you like it, Johnny? That lad dolefully replies, not very much. It tastes bitter. By and by he grows pale, but he persists, and he soon offers up a sacrifice on the altar of fashion. But the boys...
Yeah, I remember, and I think it was in May.
At last they conquer.
Stock made a huge run.
And become the victims of acquired
But it also
tastes.
made a huge drop. Same day.
I speak by the book, for
So you
I
had to take some profits
on myself, having gone so far as to smoke 10 or 15 cigars a day, although I have not used the weed during the
Some of
last
these
14
pennies,
years.
they go up quickly and they come down quickly.
The more a man smokes, the more he craves smoking. The last cigar smoked simply excites the desire for another, and so on incessantly.
SP.
Take the tobacco chewer. In the morning, when he gets up, he puts a quid in his mouth and keeps it there all day, never taking it out except to exchange it for a fresh one, or when he is going to eat. Oh yes, at intervals during the day and evening, many a chewer takes out the
Now you
quid,
see the profit, no you don't.
long enough to take a drink, and then pop, it goes
You gotta
back
lock in
in.
them profits while
This
you
simply
can.
proves that the appetite for rum is even stronger than that for tobacco.
Sell half, at least sell half.
When the tobacco chewer goes to your country seat and you show him your grapery and fruit house and the beauties of your garden, when you offer him some fresh, ripe fruit and say, "My friend, I've got here the most delicious apples and pears and peaches and apricots. I have imported them from Spain, France, and Italy. See those luscious grapes. There is nothing more delicious and healthy than ripe fruit.
Just let that be a lesson.
I want to see you delight yourself with these things." He will roll the dear quid under his tongue and answer, "No, I thank you, I have got tobacco in my mouth." His palate has become narcotized.
Half and let the half do what it do. The other half.
In a great measure,
Sometimes these stocks they run for days.
This shows what expensive, useless, and injurious habits men will get into. I speak from experience. I have smoked until I trembled like an aspen leaf. The blood rushed to my head, and I had a palpitation of the heart which I thought was heart disease, till I was almost killed with fright. When I consulted my physician, he said, "Break off tobacco using." I was not only injuring my health, spending a great deal of money, but I was setting a bad example. I obeyed his counsel.
The worst is when they do a reverse split the neck.
Never looked so beautiful as he thought he did behind a 15-cent cigar or a meerschaum. These remarks apply with tenfold force to the use of intoxicating drinks. To make money requires a clear brain. A man has got to see that. But
it's good when you catch them the right way.
He must lay all his plans with reflection and forethought, and closely examine all the details and the ins and outs of business. As no man can succeed in business unless he has a brain to enable him to lay his plans and reason to guide him in their execution, so no matter how bountifully a man may be blessed with intelligence, if the brain is muddled and his judgment warped by intoxicating drinks, opportunities have passed, never to return, while a man was sipping and so fast with his friend. How many foolish bargains have been made under the influence of the nervine, which temporarily makes its victim think he is rich? How many important chances have been put off?
The more you trade, the more you learn.
And then forever, because the wine cup has thrown the system into a state of lassitude, neutralizing the energies so essential to success in business. Verily, wine is a mocker. The use of intoxicating drinks as a beverage is as much an infatuation as is the smoking of opium by the Chinese, and the former is quite as dull, utterly indefensible in the light of philosophy, religion, or good sense. It is the parent of nearly every other.
Oh, I remember VAL.
End of section 1.
I made 100% gain on VAL. I think it was in April.
Of the art of money getting by
the whole energy sector was running wild. The safest plan and the one most sure of success for the young man starting in life is to select the vocation which is most congenial to his tastes. Parents and guardians are often quite negligent in regard to this. It is very common for a father to say, for example, I have 5 boys. I will make Billy a clergyman, John a lawyer, Tom a doctor, and Dick a farmer. He then goes into town and looks about to see what he will do with Sammy. He returns home and says, Sammy, I see watchmaking is a nice genteel business. I think I will make you a goldsmith. He does this regardless of Sam's natural inclinations or genius. We are all, no doubt, sometimes if it's a good company, Sometimes if it's a good company, even with the reverse split, price will get back up fast.
Some are born natural mechanics, while some have great aversion to machinery. Let a dozen boys of
So
10
because they
years
do the
get
reverse
together,
split just
and
to
you will soon
raise
observe 2 or
capital.
3 are whittling out some ingenious device, working with locks or complicated machinery. When they were but 5 years old, their father could find no toy to please them like a puzzle. They are natural mechanics. But the other 8 or 9 boys have different aptitudes. I belong to the latter class. I never had the slightest love for mechanism. On the contrary, I have a sort of abhorrence for complicated machinery. I never had ingenuity enough to pull up a steam engine. If a man was to take such a boy as I was and attempt to make a watchmaker of him, the boy might, after an apprenticeship of 5 or 7 years, be able to take apart and put together a watch. But all through life he would be working uphill and seizing every excuse for leaving his work and idling away his time. Watchmaking is repulsive to him. Unless a man enters upon the vocation intended for him by nature and best suited to his peculiar genius, he cannot succeed or down. You, for instance, that extraordinary linguist, the learned lawyer, Dr. were better fitted by nature for the anvil or the lapstone. After securing the you must be careful to select the vocation like clockwork and provide satisfactorily for 500 guests every day. Yet, if you should locate your house in a small village where there is no railroad communication or public travel, the location would be your ruin. It is equally important that you do not commence business where there are already enough to meet all demands in the same occupation. I remember a case which illustrates this subject. When I was in London in 1858, I was passing down Holborn with an English friend and came to the penny shows. They had immense cartoons outside portraying the wonderful curiosities to be seen, all for a penny. Being a little in the show line myself, I said, "Let us go in here." We soon found ourselves in the presence of the illustrious showman, and he proved to be the sharpest man in that line I had ever met. He told us some extraordinary stories in reference to his bearded
Yeah, I heard that today.
his albinos, his armadillos, which we could hardly
They might
believe.
be closing up
but
schools
thought it
again, but
better
most
to
schools
believe it
they're
than
online
record it.
anyway, so
He
I
finally
don't get
begged to
it.
call our attention to some wax statuary and showed us a lot of the dirtiest and filthiest wax figures imaginable. They looked as if they had not seen water since the deluge. "What is there so wonderful about your statuary?" I asked. "I beg you not to speak so satirically," he replied. "Sir, these are not Madame Tussauds wax figures, all covered with gilt and tinsel and imitation diamonds, and copied from engravings and photographs. Mine, sir, taken from life. Whenever you look upon one of those figures, you may consider that you are looking upon the living individual." Feeling a little curious upon seeing that it looked like Calvin Edson, the living skeleton, I said, "Do you call that Henry VIII? He replied, "Certainly, sir. It was taken life at Hampton Court by special order of His Majesty on such a day." He would have given the hour of the day if I had insisted. I said, "Everybody knows that Henry VIII was a great stout old king, and that figure is lean and lank. What do you say to that?" "Why," he replied, "you would be lean and lank yourself if you sat there as long as he has." There was no resisting such arguments. I said to my English friend, "Let us go out. Do not tell him who I am. I show the white feather. He beats me." He followed us to the door, and seeing the rabble in the street, he called out, "Ladies and gentlemen, I beg to draw your attention to the respectable character of my visitors," pointing to us as we walked away. I called upon him a couple of days afterwards, told him who I was, and said, "My friend, you are an excellent showman, but you have selected a bad location." He replied,
Texas.
"This is true, sir. I feel that all
It's
my
hybrid
talents
or
are thrown
full
away.
on.
But what can I do?" "You can go to America," he replied. "You can give full play to your faculties over there. You will find plenty
That's
of
crazy.
elbow room in America. I will engage you for 2 years. After that, you'll be able to go on your own account."
1 million.
He accepted
victims.
my offer and remained 2 years in my New York museum. He then went to New Orleans
Who is
and carried on a
conducting
traveling
those
show
stats?
business during the summer. Today, he is worth $60,000 simply because he selected the right vocation and also secured the proper location.
I don't trust some of these
The old
stats.
proverb says, 3 removes are as bad as a fire. But when a man is in the fire, it matters but little how soon or how often he removes. Avoid debt. Young men starting in life should avoid running into debt. There is scarcely anything that drags a person down like debt. It is a slavish position to get in, yet we find many a young man hardly out of his teens running in debt. He meets a chum and says, "Look at this, I have got trusted for a new suit of clothes." He seems to look upon the clothes as so
Yeah,
much
some of these
given to him.
statistics, I don't trust
Well,
them.
it frequently is so. But if he succeeds in paying and then gets trusted again, he is
Some of these
adopting a
big
habit
C
which will keep him in
stats.
poverty through life. Debt robs a man of his self-respect and makes him almost
I
despise
just
himself.
don't believe them.
Grunting and groaning and working for what he has eaten up or worn out, and now, when he is called upon to pay up, he has nothing to show for his money. This is properly termed working for a dead horse. I do not speak of merchants buying and selling on credit, or of those who buy on credit in order to turn the purchase to a profit. The old Quaker said to his farmer's son, "John, never get trusted, but if thee gets trusted for anything, let it be for manure, because that will help thee pay it back again." Mr. Beecher advised young men to get in debt if they could to a small amount in the purchase of land in the country districts. If a young man, he says, will only get in debt for some land and then get married, these 2 things will keep him straight, or nothing will. This may be safe to a limited extent, but getting in debt for what you eat and drink and wear is to be avoided. Some families have a foolish habit of getting credit at the stores, and thus frequently purchase many things which might have been dispensed with. It is all very well to say, "I have got trusted for 60 days, and if I don't have the money, the creditor will think nothing about it." There is no class of people in the world who have such good memories as creditors. When the 60 days run out, you will have to pay. If you do not pay, you will break your promise and probably resort to a falsehood. You may make some excuse or get in debt elsewhere to pay it, but that only involves you the deeper. A good-looking, lazy young fellow was the apprentice boy Horatio. His employer said, "Horatio, did you ever see a snail?" "I think I have," he drawled out. "You must have met him then, for I'm sure you never overtook one," said the boss. Your creditor will meet you or overtake you and say, "Now, my young friend, you agreed to pay me. You have not done it. You must give me your note." You give the note on interest, and it commences working with you. It is a dead horse. The creditor goes to bed at night and wakes up in the morning better off than when he retired to bed, because his interest has increased during the night, but you grow poorer while you are sleeping, for the interest is accumulating against you. Money is in some respects like fire. It is a very excellent servant, but a terrible master. When you have it mastering you, when interest is constantly piling up against you, it will keep you down in the worst kind of slavery. But let money work for you, and you have the most devoted servant in the world. It is no I servant. There is nothing animate or inanimate that will work so faithfully as money when placed at interest, well secured. It works night and day, and in wet or dry weather. I was born in the Blue Law state of Connecticut, where the old Puritans had laws so rigid that it was said they fined a man for kissing his wife on Sunday. Yet these rich old Puritans would have thousands of dollars at interest, and on Saturday night would be worth a certain amount. On Sunday they would go to church and perform all the duties of a Christian. On waking up on Monday morning, they would find themselves considerably richer than the Saturday night previous, simply because their money placed at interest had worked faithfully for them all day Sunday, according to law. Do not let it work against you. If you do, there is no chance for success in life so far as money is concerned. John Randolph, the eccentric, once exclaimed in Congress, "Mr. Speaker, I have discovered the philosopher's stone. Pay as you go." This is indeed nearer to the philosopher's stone than any alchemist has ever yet arrived. Persevere. When a man is in the right path, he must persevere. I speak of this because there are some persons who are born tired, naturally lazy, and possessing no self-reliance and no perseverance. But they can cultivate these qualities.
Rose Palmer in the building.
This thing remember when I am
Good night
dead.
to you,
Be
Rose.
sure you are right, then go ahead.
The market is great.
Go-aheaditiveness.
The market is hitting
not to let the
all-time highs.
blues take possession of you so as to make you relax your energies in the struggle for independence, which you must cultivate. How many have almost reached the goal of their ambition, but losing faith in themselves have relaxed their energies, and the golden prize has been lost forever? It is no doubt often true, as Shakespeare says,
Crazy 2 weeks
there is
indeed.
a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads on.
I can't wait for this year to end.
If you hesitate, some bolder hand will stretch out before you and get the prize. Remember the proverb of Solomon, "He becometh poor that dealeth."
I gotta
with
check out your
hand,
channel,
but
Rose.
the
I
hand
haven't
of the
seen anything in a
diligent
while.
maketh rich. Perseverance is sometimes but another word for self-reliance. Many persons naturally look on the dark side of life and borrow trouble. They are born so. Then they ask for advice, and they will be governed by one wind and blown by another, and cannot rely upon themselves. Until you can get so that you can rely upon yourself, you need not expect.
Please like
to
the
succeed.
live. Please like.
I have known men personally who have met with pecuniary reverses and absolutely committed suicide because they thought they could never overcome their misfortune. But I have known others who have met more serious financial difficulties and have bridged them over by simple perseverance, aided by a firm belief that they were doing justly and that Providence would overcome evil with good. You will see this illustrated in any sphere of life. Take 2 generals, both understand military tactics, both educated at West Point, if you pleased, both equally gifted. Yet one having this principle of perseverance and the other lacking it, the former will succeed in his profession, while the latter will fail. One may hear the cry, "The enemy are coming, and they have got cannon." "Got cannon?" says the hesitating general. "Yes." "Then halt every man." He wants time to reflect. His hesitation is his ruin. The enemy passes unmolested or overwhelms him, while on the other hand, the general of pluck, perseverance, and self-reliance goes into battle with a will, and amid the clash of arms, the booming of cannon, the shrieks of the wounded, and the moans of the dying, you will see this man persevering, going on, cutting and slashing his way through with unwavering determination, inspiring his soldiers to deeds of fortitude, valor, and triumph. Whatever you do, do it with all your might. Work at it if necessary, early and late, in season and out of season, not leaving a stone unturned and never deferring for a single hour that which can be done just as well now. The old proverb is full of truth and meaning. Whatever is worth doing at all is worth doing well. Many a man acquires a fortune by doing his business thoroughly, while his neighbor remains poor for life because he only half does it. Ambition, energy, industry, perseverance are indispensable requisites for success in business. Fortune always favors the brave and never helps a man who does not help himself. It won't do to spend your time like Mr. Micawber in waiting for something to turn up. To such men, one of two things usually turns up: the poorhouse or the jail. For idleness breeds bad habits and clothes a man in rags. The poor spendthrift vagabond said to a rich man, "I have discovered there is money enough in the world for all of us, if it was equally divided. This must be done, and we shall all be happy together." "But," was the response, "if everybody was like you, it would be spent in 2 months, and what would you do then?" "Oh, divide again. Keep dividing, of course." I was recently reading in a London paper an account of a like philosophic pauper who was kicked out of a cheap boarding house because he could not pay his bill. But he had a roll of papers sticking out of his coat pocket, which, upon examination, proved to be his plan for paying off the national debt of England without the aid of a penny. People have got to do as Cromwell said: not only trust in Providence, but keep the powder dry. Do your part of the work or you cannot succeed. Muhammad, one night, while encamping in the desert, overheard one of his fatigued followers remark, "I will loose my camel and trust it to God." "No, no, not so," said the Prophet. "Tie thy camel and trust it to God. Do all you can for yourselves, and then trust to Providence or luck or whatever you please to call it for the rest." Depend upon your own personal exertions. The eye of the employer is often worth more than the hands of a dozen employees. In the nature of things, an agent cannot be so faithful to his employer as to himself. Many who are employers will call to mind instances where the best employees have overlooked important points which could not have escaped their own observation as a proprietor. No man has a right to expect to succeed in life unless he understands his business, and nobody can understand this thoroughly unless he learns it by personal application and experience. A man may be a manufacturer. He has got to learn the many details of his business personally. He will learn something every day, and he will find he will make mistakes nearly every day. And these very mistakes are helps to him in the way of experiences, if he but heeds them. He will be like the Yankee tin peddler who, having been cheated as to quality in the purchase of his merchandise, said, "All right, there's a little information to be gained every day. I will never be cheated in that way again." Thus a man buys his experience, and it is the best kind if not purchased at too dear a rate. I hold that every man should, like Cuvier, the French naturalist, thoroughly know his business. So proficient was he in the study of natural history that you might bring to him the bone or even a section of a bone of an
5 minutes on the
animal that he had never
live.
seen described, and reasoning from analogy, he would be able to draw a picture of the object from which the bone had been taken. On one occasion, his students
Gotta
attempted
go
to
get some
deceive him.
rest.
They rolled one of their number in a cow skin and put him under the professor's table as a new specimen. When the philosopher came into the room, some of the students asked him what animal it was. Suddenly the animal said, "I am the devil and I am going to eat you." It was but natural that Cuvier should desire to classify this creature, and examining it intently, he said, "Divided hoof. Graminivorous. It cannot be done. He knew that an animal with a split hoof must live upon grass and grain or other kind of vegetation, and would not be inclined to eat flesh, dead or alive, so he considered himself perfectly safe. The possession of a perfect knowledge of your business is an absolute necessity in order to ensure success. Among the maxims of the elder Rothschild was one, an apparent paradox: be cautious and bold. This seems to be a contradiction in terms, not, and there is great wisdom in the maxim. It is, in fact, a condensed statement of what I have already said. It is to say, you must exercise your caution in laying your plans, but be bold in carrying them out. A man who is all caution will never dare to take hold and be successful, and a man who is all boldness is merely reckless and must eventually fail. A man may go on change and make $50,000 or $100,000 in speculating in stocks at a single operation, but if he has simple boldness without caution, it is mere chance, and what he gains today he will lose tomorrow. You must have both the caution and the boldness to ensure success. The Rothschilds have another maxim: never have anything to do with an unlucky man or place. That is to say, never have anything to do with a man or place which never succeeds, because although a man may appear to be honest and intelligent, yet if he tries this or that thing and always fails, it is on account of some fault or infirmity that you may not be able to discover, but nevertheless which must exist. There is no such thing in the world as luck. There never was a man who could go out in the morning and find a purse full of gold in the street today, and another tomorrow, and so on, day after day. He may do so once in his life, but so far as mere luck is concerned, he is as liable to lose it as to find it. Like causes produce like effects. If a man adopts the proper methods to be successful, luck will not prevent him. If he does not succeed, there are reasons for it, although perhaps he may not be able to see them. Use the best tools. Men in engaging employees should be careful to get the best. Understand, you cannot have two good tools to work with, and there is no tool you should be so particular about as living tools. If you get a good one, it is better to keep him than keep changing. He learns something every day, and you are benefited by the experience he acquires. He is worth more to you this year than last, and he is the last man to part with, provided his habits are good and he continues faithful. If, as he gets more valuable, he demands an exorbitant increase of salary on the supposition that you can't do without him, let him go. Whenever I have such an employee, I always discharge him. First, to convince him that his place may be supplied, and second, because he is good for nothing if he thinks he is invaluable and can be spared. But I would keep him, if possible, in order to profit from the result of his experience. An important element in an employee is the brain. You can see bills up, hands wanted, but hands are not worth a great deal without heads. Mr. Beecher illustrates this in this wise. An employee offers his services by saying, "I have a pair of hands and one of my fingers thinks." "That is very good," says the employer. Another man comes along and says he has 2 fingers that think. "Ah, that is better." The third calls in and says that all his fingers and thumbs think. That is better still. Finally, another steps in and says, "I have a brain that thinks. I think all over. I am a thinking as well as a working man." "You are the man I want," says the delighted employer. Those men who have brains and experience are therefore the most valuable and not to be readily parted with. It is better for them as well as yourself to keep them at reasonable advances in their salaries from time to time. Don't get above your business. Young men, after they get through their business training or apprenticeship, instead of pursuing their avocation and rising in their business, will often lie about doing nothing. They say, I have learned my business, but I am not going to be a hireling. What is the object of learning my trade or profession unless I establish myself? Have you capital to start with? No, but I am going to have it. How are you going to get it? I will tell you confidentially. I have a wealthy old aunt and she will die pretty soon.
Shout out to
But
Kay
she does
Last
not
for
expect to
tuning
find
in.
some rich old man who will lend me a few
Rose
thousands
Palmer,
to give me a
appreciate
start.
you.
If I only get the money to start with, I will do
77
well.
dimes. Thanks for
There is
checking
no
in.
greater mistake than when
Kenneth
a young man
Wallace.
believes he will succeed with borrowed money. Why? Because every man's experience coincides
Hope
with that of
everyone
Mr. Astor, who said it was more difficult for him
have
to
a great
accumulate
weekend.
his first $1,000 than all the succeeding millions that made up his colossal.
And I'll see you maybe tomorrow or definitely Sunday with Sunday's Stock List. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.